Well, hello, everyone. This is John Byrne with Poets&Quants. Welcome to Fridays with Sandy. That would be Sandy Kreisberg, the founder of HBSGuru.com. There he is.
Shalom, everybody, and happy fall. Happy Oktoberfest coming up.
Now, today for our handicapping session, I think we have a first. I don't believe we've ever had a candidate who worked on a cruise ship playing the trumpet. But Ty Sheets certainly has. In the last 2 years, however, he's been a senior impact and operations manager for City Year, which is one of the largest groups supported by AmeriCorps in placing people into impact jobs in the social sector. And he has a 710 GMAT, great GPA, but it is in music at 3.9. It's from a school, it's called Gardner Webb University, small school, and was recruited especially there for his musical talent. He is aiming for Yale, Michigan, UVA, and Duke. So what do we think of Ty, Sandy?
Okay, let me summarize this in a shakedown way. What we got is a white male with a 3.9 GPA from a lesser known school, a 710 GMAT. Those stats are all in the pool of Yale, Michigan, UVA, and Duke. Here's the question for you, John. What does a 730 versus a 710 GMAT buy him?
I don't think it buys him anything, to be honest. 20 points isn't anything. And I'll go back to what we say over and over again. Now, I know it's a little dated because Dee Leopold, who had been the managing director of Harvard, used to say this. She doesn't care what your GMAT score is as long as the 7's in front of it. I think a 710, particularly for these schools, perfect good.
Let me play the bad cop here. I think in a case like, I think for a white male in the schools he's looking at, the difference between a 710 and a 730 is significant. It's not negligible. I think it could be important. I don't know what, I don't know what your energy level is or whatever, but you might think about retaking that.
And I think you're saying that because he's a white male, and of course, white males.
He's a white male, and everything about him breaks perfectly even with these schools. So the question is he going to lose out to some of, yeah, he's in the white male bucket, but it's a big bucket, and there's a lot of guys with 730s. That's my point.
Yeah. But I think he's differentiated in the bucket because he's not your normal Wall Street dude.
I agree with you on that one. I agree with you on that one.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you are distinguished by having, Ty, you're distinguished by having spent, if I got this right, 5 years with AmeriCorps?
Yes, sir. That's right. I've spent 5 years in a few different roles with City Year.
Okay, so introduce yourself professionally,
Sure.
I've been working at AmeriCorps for 5 years, and AmeriCorps is, and I've done blah, blah, blah.
I can do that. Hello, my name is Ty. I am a musician by training. I have a couple music degrees, but for the last 5 years, I've been with an organization called City Year, which is an education and equity focused nonprofit that places teams of diverse AmeriCorps members in our highest need schools in cities across the country. AmeriCorps, you can kind of think of it as a...
Sure. What am I going to tell them, John?
Don't keep going, just answer and stop.
Sure.
No, you're doing a great job of introducing yourself.
Yeah, he is.
But it's not conversational.
Gotcha.
Oh, okay.
Conversational is the key. If you did that in a real interview, the interviewer, if you were a nice person, would interrupt you, which they usually do. But if you were just saying, man, I've got 10 white guys today and I've got to ding 7 of them, he just may let you go on and go, I don't want to sit next to this boring You think I'm being fanciful here?
Well,
I'm
that's a fair
Hey,
point.
describing deep reality.
What if he brings his trumpet to his interview?
I've thought about that, honestly.
It's not
No, I
worth
think
the risk.
that's totally fair. Can I give it one more shot, perhaps?
Yeah.
I'm going to treat the trumpet question seriously. It's not worth the risk. The downside is more than the upside.
And I don't want to seem unserious. I mean, I am serious about this, and I don't want to be gimmicky or.
Well, you want to be conversational. Okay.
Sure.
Let's say this is the interview.
Okay.
Hey, hi Ty. I've been reading your resume. It's real interesting. Could you tell me what city year is and what you do there?
Sure, I can tell you that. So City Year is an AmeriCorps organization. That means that we put full-time volunteers in our highest need schools. So our goal is really to try to help kids stay on track to graduate.
I'm lost already. What about you, John?
No, I'm getting it. I'm getting it.
How can I improve that, Sandy?
You've already heard it. What you got to do is you've got to start at whatever they call it, 30,000 feet, and say City Year is a government-sponsored nonprofit that focuses on the education. Yeah, John is now waving his head and agreeing with me. Right?
Yeah.
Can you do it that way?
I can sure give it a shot. Yes. So I'm Ty.
Okay, let's start from scratch. Hey, Ty. Good to meet you. A lot going on here. Could you tell me what you're doing now?
Absolutely. So I am a senior impact and operations manager at City Year. We are a federally administered program that works to bridge the gap between education resources and what kids need.
Bridge the gap between educational resources and what kids need.
Right. So what schools are able to provide?
Let me just make a strong point here. That's bullshit. Okay.
But that's what he does. I'm not. I know you don't like the
serious. I'm not.
You don't like the language describing it because it's kind of lingo.
I'm serious, man. You've got to be able to describe this it could be the first question, and it'll certainly come up. This is worth spending time on. You've got to be able to describe that in a conversational year. City Year is a government program. What it does is it focuses on schools that are in trouble, underfunded schools, usually urban schools, and its mission is to do this and that and that. Okay, what you need to do is to say that in an accurate way, but with that kind of tone and that kind of conversational thing. Can you do that?
Absolutely. So I work for City Year. We're federally administered, and the mission behind our work is to really help schools that are struggling, that have been systemically underfunded, really get the resources and the supports they need to help our kids stay on track. The dropout crisis in America is real. Our kids need support, and that's what we're there to provide.
Would grade that answer, John?
I like it. I give it an A.
Yeah, you liked it because it got a lot better when it got personal.
Yeah.
It started off a little confused and jargony. You got to say City Year is a government program. It's focused on whatever it is, underfunded schools. What we currently it's got, the size of it is X. Last year we received Y dollars in funding, and let me tell you what we do.
Okay, that's super fair. Would you like me to give it one more shot?
Yeah.
Okay. So I work for City Year. We're a federally administered program, a pretty large nonprofit. We are in 29 different cities, and our mission is to address the dropout crisis in America. Kids do not have the equal amount of resources.
How do you address the dropout crisis? I don't understand.
That's what I was about to try to start kind of detailing.
That's okay. Bit. Well, you will be I'm doing you a favor here.
No, I believe you.
Yeah. How do you address the dropout crisis?
So we address the dropout crisis by putting teams of people who build relationships with kids, who provide tutoring, after-school programs, and help them stay on track in a few key areas like attendance, in their behavior, and in their course performance, their academics.
Okay, I'm not breaking your chops here. I still don't understand it.
I mean, sometimes I feel like I don't either. So
that won't get you out of the problem of not being able to explain it. Okay.
I hear you. I hear you.
Who does City Year employ? What are they assigned to schools? We have City Year is a government-funded program. It attempts to address the dropout crisis in high schools. And the way we do it is we have typically volunteers for 1 or 2 years, and we send these volunteers after some training into underserved schools. And what the volunteers do is kind of act as a rescue squad on scene, like a Navy SEAL team there in the school.
I think you've got it. I mean, that really gets down to the essence of what we do, I think.
Well,
Yeah,
I'm glad I got it, but I'm not going to be the one who's asked.
Of course.
And with a familiar metaphor and using Navy SEALs, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There's probably a better one than Navy SEALs.
I like that. I think that works.
Yeah. Sure.
So that's what they do. And so what kind of, tell me about a typical volunteer. Who are they? How long do they sign up, and how are they trained, and what do they do?
Sure. So our volunteers are incredible people. They are young. So the vision is that they're between 18 and 25 years old, so that they're not so far away from the age of our kids that they can't relate to them. But they're not close enough to the student's age where they're their peers or their friends.
Blah, 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 blah. Would you answer the flipping question?
Sure.
Who are they?
I mean, it's a hard to describe them in one swath, one statement.
Yes, no, it's not. They're typically either recently college grads or people who are taking time off from college. They're dedicated to education, and they're frequently ages, whatever, 21 to 28, and there are X number of them.
Sure.
How flipping hard is that?
Not too flipping hard, sir.
Okay.
Would you like for me to try it again?
Yes, I would.
Okay, so our volunteers are between 18 and 25 years old. Some might be taking a gap year from college. Some might be high school grads. These are folks who really care about helping kids and serving kids and helping keep them on track. And we train them to provide interventions. We train them to build relationships. And really their goal, the reason they're there, is to build relationships and keep our kids.
This is where you lose me. The reason they're where?
And they're in schools.
There's a macro part of this that you're not capturing.
Okay.
People volunteer for City Year and they get assigned to underserved schools. Is that correct?
Correct.
With the cooperation of the school.
That's right.
Yeah. So they get assigned to schools. Usually they've got a liaison or a mentor at the school.
That's right.
And they perform several things.
That's right. So we partner with teachers and principals in these schools. We serve all day, every day in classrooms, serving as tutors and mentors to those students.
Give me a typical day of a volunteer.
Sure. So we're there before the kids arrive to positively welcome them in the building. High fives, good mornings, how's it going? Then we're in their class periods all day long. We're either helping them stay focused and stay engaged, or pulling them out of class.
Stop right there.
Okay.
What you just said is our volunteers are sitting in a classroom of 30 people, right?
Yes.
What do they do while the class is going on?
Any number of things. So they will lead sections of class along with the teacher. They will pull groups of students out of class for intervention style work to help kids catch up who are far behind. And then they also will help dysregulated students essentially regulate again. So kids who are really riled up and are going to maybe start something in class, they might take them out in the hallway, have a conversation, bring them back in ready to focus.
Isn't that interruptive to the class? I mean, the teacher has got a hard enough time addressing the body of the class. And now they've got some other guy that a wise
Sure.
guy could turn to and say, hey man, I'm bored with teach, can you help me?
I think there's something about the nature of our schools and classrooms that I'm not quite getting across. So if you think about a typical classroom, you might have one or two kids who really struggles to stay engaged, or at least in a typical classroom where I grew up. Our classrooms, you might have 80% of the students who are multiple grade levels behind. Therefore, it's hard for them to pay attention. They don't really know how to resolve conflict quite as well as they should. So there's a lot more, there can be a lot more chaos involved. So we're kind of helping.
I believe it. So given that environment, what do your volunteers do?
They, so they're partnering.
Here's my problem. The way
Sure.
you're describing it is they're a kind of independent resource. I believe the truth is they're there to help the teacher, right?
They're there. Yes. I mean, the teachers are a hugely important partner in that process, but we're there to help kids.
Well, they're there to help the teacher help kids, right? But I think, is this a more accurate way of describing it? The volunteers are there to help the teacher. So this could take many forms. Sometimes you've got one disruptive student and the teacher might say, oh, Joe, the volunteer, could you take, Billy the disruptor out in the hall, please?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Or another form it could take is while the teacher is teaching a lesson, the volunteer might get a group of 3 people and try and go over things. That sounds unwieldy to me, but
no, those two things, if you have the right conditions for success, which is actually part of my role right now, is establishing those with our school partners. If those conditions for success are met, then it's not an unwieldy process. It actually means that kids get a lot more individualized work and like attention, which really helps their development, especially if they're really far behind.
Okay, good. I'm going to try and move on here.
Okay.
What role? Now you've been with the organization for how long?
A little over 5 years.
Okay, so could you quickly tell me what your roles were?
Sure. So I was a member in a classroom for a year. I was selected to return as kind of a peer leader and an oversight person for the second year. And then for the last 3 years before my current role, I formally managed a team of full-time volunteers, as well as a partnership with an urban school. I actually started the partnership with this school. So I coach and train and do performance management for my volunteers. And then I also partner with administrators, principals, teachers to make sure that we have a common understanding that we're kind of running towards the same goal and not trying to go 2 separate routes to get to the same place. My current role, however, I still manage a school partnership, but I have more. So our site in particular, we have multiple schools.
Hey, John, when is he going to stop talking?
Okay.
Ty, you get my point there?
I do.
And also, John, how well do you think he was doing, even if he shut up?
Well, the beginning part I thought was good.
You've got to de-jargonize it.
Sure, I think that's a really good point.
I'm still not fully getting it, and as I said, I'm not breaking your chops, man. It's got to come up.
No, I totally understand it. That's why I'm doing this. So I really appreciate it.
What do you? Okay, so that's the most important part. Most of your interview will be that, what are you doing? How is it doing? What's the organization about? And then there might be a part where they say, well, what are you going to business school for? Yeah.
Definitely. So I am going to business school because I want to learn how to help organizations grow. That's the short idea. I've been a part of organizations that have been growing, like the organization I'm in now, and I've seen how tough it is for social.
Stop, John. What am I going to tell
him? It sounds too scripted.
It's generic. Okay.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Yeah.
This is critical. Okay, everybody, get right next to the screen. When they ask you, "What are you going to business school?" they want your personal answer. I'm Joe Blow. I'm going to business school because I'm interested in working in the field of X, and I'm going to business school to learn both basic business skills and also focus on X skills.
Sure.
And here's something you should be able to do. And this is often a good way to start. And I say this every week, but nobody listens, but I don't care. If they listened, maybe I wouldn't have a job.
So,
You need a roadmap. Tell me a roadmap after business school. Tell me what job you want after business school, what job you want 5 years after that, and where you see yourself ultimately.
For sure. So 5 years after business school, I hope to still be a management consultant, helping nonprofits, for-profit clients solve problems of scale and growth. I want to then transition back to
you just flip me out there, man. The question I really want to know is what job do you want right after business school?
consulting. Sorry, that's where I want to transition to.
That's critical because that's a transition that you've got to explain.
Mhm.
This is real important. What I want to do after business school is become a general management consultant for a leading firm, like McKinsey, BCG, or firms, or a specialist firm that specializes in education. McKinsey has a track for this that I've looked at and spoken to people, and that would be a great outcome for me.
Yeah.
After X years at McKinsey, take it from there.
Yeah, so after 3 to 5 years as a management consultant, my goal is to return to an organization like City Year, say in the early 2000s, really kind of on the cusp of major growth, so I can help take my experience, the lessons I've learned both in business school and as a consultant, to really help that organization grow in a sustainable way and meet the scale of the problem it's trying to solve.
Okay, that's acceptable because you've given us the context of what you're doing. Okay, here's a mini question.
Okay.
Can you name other outfits that do the same thing as City Year?
Teach for America is often seen as a similar organization. I think also there's an organization called Literacy Lab that works with younger students, but is still really there to provide the extra supports that a school needs. Those are two good ones.
Yeah, you see, those are good. When you're talking about your goals, you say, after business school, I might want to work in general consulting just to learn best business practices, make contacts. But after a couple of years as a general consultant, a couple of years is a good thing to say because that's usually when people at McKinsey make it their choice. Either go to private equity or they do something else.
Right.
So saying a couple of years is good. After a couple of years of learning general business skills, I'd like to go to organizations like Teach for America, City Year, Bang, Bang, and Bang. That becomes very impressive. The fact that you've got, everyone's heard of Teach for America and a lot of people have heard of City Year. And then if you've got 3 other organizations, it really telegraphs to them that you're serious about this.
Understood.
Okay, here's another question that I ask every week that nobody pays attention to or thinks about. Whose job do you want in 30 years, or who's a role model for you?
Actually, I think about a current senior leader at City Year who did an MBA at Fuqua, actually. His name is Jeff Jablow, and he really is in charge of a lot of strategic work that City Year does, where we need to go next, what cities we need to expand to, and then how we're measuring our impact, how we make sure we're effective.
What's his title?
Senior Vice President of Strategy, I believe.
Okay. John, is that his final job, or is that his, if I'm using this word correctly, penultimate job?
So you think he should name someone higher up?
For purposes of interview BS, yes, I do.
Yeah. So like a CEO of something?
No, you should name Jeff's boss.
Okay. So sure. So Jim Balfons is the CEO of City Year. I think he's a really good model.
The answer. I'd like to be Jim Balfons. He's the CEO of City Year. I love the guy. He's very powerful. He's done this and this, and he's done that and that. And a way of getting there might be to also have the job for a couple of years of a guy is another role model for me,
Yeah.
The guy you told us about.
I understand that.
They want you to aspire to, big things where you're the decision maker and you're going to really
For
make
purposes of the B school interview hot tub, where, life is a little different than it is when you're out in the street. Yeah, your dream is not to be the number 2 guy, okay?
Oh.
Yeah. It's like, oh yeah, I want to be Elon Musk. Oh yeah, I want to replace Jamie Dimon. That kind of thing.
Right. Understood.
Well, you wouldn't say if you're interested in politics, they say, what's your aspiration? They go, man, I'm dying to be vice president. I mean,
Touche. Hey, I want to just, before we leave, I want to come back to something that I think is important, and I should have mentioned earlier. We know that Ty is a poet, meaning his undergraduate training was in music, and he played music for many years. And I'm thinking, wow, you got a 710, and while that's impressive, it's more important what the splits are, because I'm thinking that in Ty's case,
the 3.9 in the music school, you might go, yeah, that's the average.
Yeah. So that quant score on the 710 is going to assume more importance. And I'm wondering what your quant score was.
It was a 45.
Okay. That should be good enough.
That's pretty good. What is that, like over 80%?
It was about 55 percentile.
I think 45 should be good enough.
Okay. I'm also hoping that the HBS score will also help my case here.
It will.
Okay.
The admissions.
Yeah, it will, but
Yeah.
you cannot be too cynical about how in love these schools are with just numbers,
Right.
not stories.
Sure. That makes sense.
Just keep that in mind. Boy.
So
okay, John, I want to ask this again. You don't think he's better with a 730? I mean, really better.
I think the quant score is going to be what they're really going to look at. So in the 40,
you could, hey, Ty, you can,
for
you can live with it. You can answer it yourself. 710 is a good score for your schools. It's right in the mix at your target schools. You see, if you had a 730, you'd be bringing them a little bit of a dowry.
Sure.
You know what I mean.
I do, yeah.
I'll let you and you're 30. So this is an important year. Have you applied to business school before?
I've not actually thought about it really seriously last year, and COVID did a number on education, and I felt the need to kind of stay and help steady the ship before leaving.
Good.
Okay, let's just sign off with doing Harvard a favor. Tell us about, you took their Credential of Readiness. Tell us what that is and what you thought of it. Yeah,
so the core program is basically 3 different courses. It's an accounting course, it's an analytics course, and it's an econ course. It's pretty rigorous for someone who hasn't come with like formal business education. But
who was in your class, and what were they like, and what were they trying to do, and what happened to them?
All different kinds of things. So we had folks who had done MBAs in previous years. We had folks who were high up in their companies already. We had people like me who are coming from kind of unique and different backgrounds. But we learned a lot from each other. The way they set the platform up is that you have to engage with other people to move through the course. So that was one of my favorite parts about that program for sure. Yeah, good. But I'm kind of interested in what it's going to buy you. What do you think, John?
Well, you have the admissions director at UVA Darden saying that core, she looks at that, she respects it, and people who apply there with it have an advantage.
Well, that's an answer. You see, that's why we have John here. John doesn't know much in terms of philosophy or problem solving, but he knows a lot of facts just like that, which in this case are incredibly valuable. Sure. That's actually the reason. Go ahead.
And UVA is part of a group of schools that meet regularly, meaning the admission directors talk to each other on a regular basis and all of your schools are in that group, Yale, Michigan, and Duke.
Wonderful.
Yeah, that's in my former life as a lawyer, that's known as an antitrust violation. But still, just keep moving along.
Okay, but final bottom line, your odds at Yale, Michigan, UVA, Duke. What do you think, Sandy? With the 710.
Yeah, I think you should. Your chances of getting into Michigan, UVA, and Duke are good. I think you should get in. On the other hand, many people, those schools, how many people do those schools accept, John? 10, 12%, 10%?
Oh, I'd say
Higher?
20% plus.
Yeah. So if you're better than 20%, your odds are like 30, 50%, and you should get in, but a lot of people who should get in don't get in.
Yeah, and Yale could be a stretch.
Yale could be a stretch, but man, they might.
They're going to like them.
Don't they have a residual reputation as being, for nonprofits?
Yes, yes. They take in more people with nonprofit experience than any other business school in the world, period. So
that's a plus.
You do have, I mean, I think your background is really interesting. Where they may be, a little troubled is they may want a higher quant score than 45.
Okay.
And this is where that 730, if you push up the quant, couldn't make a difference. It would also make a difference if you want to apply to Kellogg. And post MBA goal is any of these schools would be good, but Kellogg would be really good.
Okay, last, have you spoken to these schools, Ty, in any way, reached out or took
Yes.
an ambassador?
Yes.
What did they say?
Good.
I'm sorry, what do you mean?
What did they say? Did they actually say anything useful?
I'm sorry, I'm a little confused by the question.
When you spoke to the ambassador from, Yale,
Sure.
did he say, look, we really like guys like you, and I like you, and I'd encourage you to apply.
I've had some fantastic interactions with admissions committee folks who have reached out to offer resources and things, and have been seemingly excited that I am applying.
Okay, and you think that was not just generic baloney? You think that they were really impressed with what they saw?
In a few cases, I do believe that. Yes.
Yeah, good. Well, keep flogging that. I don't know how to keep working that angle. That can be important.
Understood.
Okay, John. Here's the last question. Gets to you, John. He just told you that he's got some. He's beginning to develop some personal contacts at these schools. What should he do to follow up on that?
Well, when you do apply, I'd send a note and indicate that you have applied and you're really excited about the possibility of going there.
He met John. He met Jill at Michigan, and what you're saying is when you file your Michigan application, write Jill a letter.
Yeah. I'm also saying that if and when you visit campus, you do the same.
That's great advice. Thank you.
Writing a letter when you apply is good advice. Can you do anything before then?
Well, you could, if he goes and visits a school, he can say, "Hey, I'm going to be on campus. I'd love to stop by and buy you a coffee or say hello."
Yeah, that's never going to happen. She's got a lot of people. What can he do right now with Jill?
I don't know. What can he do?
What did you do after you met her, or whoever she is or he is?
I've always sent a follow-up email just thanking them for the space and reiterating my excitement for the program, and that type of just kind of short to the point email has been my mode. Why?
So what you're saying is I basically did nothing except write a nominal email.
I wasn't, I mean, I'm kind of by myself in this process. So I don't really know what's acceptable or normal to in terms of interacting with folks like this. So
That's the whole point. You see, there's no rules except, you know, obvious ones like don't send her a gag gift with a sex doll.
Yeah, geez.
There's no rules. So that's the point. So John, given that there are no rules, what should he have done with Jill?
Well, he could send her a YouTube video link with him playing the trumpet.
I did do that with one person, actually. We connected on the music piece, and I did do that, actually.
Okay, but that's a good one-off story.
Sure.
What's the non one-off story? You should have written a long email to Jill saying, you know, boy, it was great meeting you. You know, I've thought about it since we've met. I've reached out to other people at the school. I'm really gung ho for the following reasons. That kind of note.
Yeah. So
that's business.
Other people because you're so interested.
I see.
Yeah, that's a good sub point of that. But writing those kind of fulsome, and John will tell us what the word fulsome means. People often don't know.
A more expansive, because otherwise it comes off as a simple rote thank you and it's forgotten. But the more expansive it is, the more specific you are, the more likely it is to be remembered.
Fulsome does not mean full. It means overdone and insincere. But that's okay, because the lingua franca of the business world is fulsome. So let's get back down. Let's make it real simple. What you should have done, and this is not critical, but you should have written Jill, and it should start becoming your habit as a future businessman and perpetual networker. Okay,
Got it.
It's always game face. You're always on, right?
Yes, I hear that completely. Yeah, I really appreciate that advice. Thank you.
Good.
All right. Bye. Good luck to you.
Yeah, Ty, you're a business school could use you, and so could so could the programs you're interested in. So
could the jazz orchestra at Lincoln Center, conducted by Wynton Marsalis.
I would take both.
All right. Good luck to you. And Sandy, thank you again for a penetrating analysis. This is John Burr with Poets and Quants. Fridays with Sandy.